warm greetings to all the students all over the country, especially to my students from grade 12 Accountancy, Business and Management section of Virgen del Carmen, grade 12 Humanities and Social Sciences section of Virgen del Pilar, and grade 12 Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics section of Virgen del Rosario. Good day, folks. Welcome to the fifth week of virtual discussion, discovery, and learning in the course CPAR, or Contemporary Philippine Arts from the Regions. Before we start this week's session, let me first thank all of you for attending our asynchronous discussion. It's been a month since we started our distance learning program, and I hope that you have now adjusted your whole system, especially in the way that you are learning and studying at the comfort of your homes amidst this pandemic. So, again, thank you very much. My dear senior high school students, I assume that you really learned a lot in the first four discussions in the subject or the learning area, since I believe that gaining enough knowledge from those discussions will be of great help as we move to another lesson for today. From the definition and concept of contemporary arts to the discussion about the various art forms and the new phase of art forms in the contemporary period, up to the Filipino artist's role in the world of contemporary arts. Lahat ng yan ay ating tinalakay with a corresponding learning module sa bawat session. That's why ang tanong, for this week, saan kayang particular topic naman tayo magfo-focus or magko-concentrate? Let me respond to that question by presenting you our learning competency for the fifth week based from the MELCs or the most essential learning competencies from the Department of Education. For this week, my senior high school students, our learning competency is evaluates contemporary art forms based on the elements and principles. Let me repeat, evaluates contemporary art forms based on the elements and principles. You have gained so much knowledge, class, about the so-called basics of contemporary arts sa mga nagdaang linggo. And again, these learnings are essential as we upgrade today your way of learning in the subject. If in the first 4 weeks o kung sa mga nagdaang linggo, our way of learning is more of answering the questions ano, sino, saan, kailan, and the other basic questions related to contemporary arts. This time, mag-upgrade naman tayo sa pagsagot ng tanong na how and why. Yes, it's now how. How are we going to apply our learnings or this knowledge and wisdom about contemporary arts in real life situations? And why? Why do we need to do these things? Is it important? Is it beneficial? Would it be of great help not only to you but to the society as well? Expect, my dear students, that in the coming sessions, more of learning towards doing and applying na tayo. And I'm pretty sure that our topics in the coming weeks, including our topic today, will surely help you na din to become critical thinkers, most especially in the field of arts. And as usual, the next question is, paano natin ma-achieve ang ating competency? So here's our fifth learning objective. My dear senior high school students, at the end of the session, you are expected to assess and review a specific masterpiece of contemporary arts based on its elements and principles and not on personal impression through writing and art analysis. Let me highlight the word analysis. Sa salitang ito pa lamang, asahan na ninyo that I am expecting outputs from you na magre-reflect about your in-depth understanding sa ating lesson. We're done with the basic reflection paper, informative essay, simple research paper, etc. This time, it's about time for you to make an art analysis that will help us in achieving our learning competency and objective of the week. And this time, allow me to provide you naman an idea about the specific learning contents or learning topics na iisa-isahin natin today. Actually, we have only one topic, and that is evaluating contemporary art masterpiece based from the elements of arts and principles of design. Surely, it's evident that this week it's more of doing the topic than knowing it. And since the qualities of a critical thinker is needed in this subject matter, I have injected as well in our discussion the so-called review on art elements and the review on the principles of design upang mas lalong maging madali sa inyo ang acquisition of knowledge. So that's it. We're done with my introduction. Let us now officially begin the fifth asynchronous discussion in the course Contemporary Philippine Arts from the Regions. As a sort of review, take a look on your screen and let's see paano nag-revolve ang ating discussion last week, which I assume ay inyo ng lubos na nauunawaan. And at the same time, ay na-enjoy while watching the presentation ng hundreds of Filipino artists na meron tayo sa ating bansa. So noong isang linggo nga, we started the discussion by highlighting the Filipino artist role, lalo na ang kanilang mahalagang kontribusyon sa larangan ng sining at sa ating lipunan. We have highlighted the personal, the social, the physical, and the immaterial in the lives of our artists, and and it helped us na makapunta sa pag-iisa-isa ng mga kasapi ng Order of National Artists and the Gawad sa Manlilikha ng Bayan or what we call Gamaba na parehong may malaking ginampanan of course sa pag-uspong ng isipang malikhain nating mga Pilipino. And finally, hindi rin natin nakalimutan to highlight the Filipinos of today who grace the world stage in the field of arts na I'm sure ay until in the future ay magiging inspirasyon ng nakararami in showing their artistic talents and creativity for us to have more innovation in the different forms of arts. And now, as I have my introduction to the lesson of the day, allow me to begin with a famous quotation, or should I say idiomatic expression, which I believe has a connection to our topic. It says, don't judge a book by its cover. I'm gonna repeat, don't judge a book by its cover. So I know na ito ay familiar na sa inyo at madalas din for sure na sinasabi nyo ito. This is a common English idiom, right? And a metaphorical phrase that means one should not prejudge an opinion, characteristics, or the true value of someone or something just by saying what's on the surface or by assessing only the physical details alone. Why? Because after taking a deeper look, the person or the thing may be very different than what was expected. And nowadays, class, judging someone or something has been very easy for us, lalong-lalo na sa ibang tao. Especially na tayo ngayon ay nasa ICT age. And it seems na we cannot live na without using various social media applications. At present, ang daling mag-judge, ang daling mag-criticize, ang daling mag-assess ng isang tao or bagay, lalo na when it is circulating online through emoji reactions, list of trending topics, numbers of views ng isang video na super dali na talaga na makapag-conclude on something. Wala naman sanang masama, class, only if you are making a judgment carefully. And for today nga, this quotation has a direct connection sa ating topic, which is all about evaluating a contemporary art masterpiece based on elements and principles of arts, and not just on personal impression only. I know that many of us ay madaling ma-fascinate sa isang art form based sa kung ano lang ang nakikita ng ating mata at kung ano lamang ang naunang pumasok sa ating isipan. But class, evaluate means to judge, to assess, to gauge, to review. And in this course, what we are going to assess are works of art in the contemporary era. Pero gagawin natin ang critiquing process ng isang artwork by using a strong basis and evidence at hindi lamang ukol sa ating opinion or point of view. Sa madaling sabi, my dear senior high school students, the task of evaluating a work of art requires a combination of objective information and subjective opinion. And this topic class is very timely since as 21st century learners, you are expected to become critical thinkers at inaasahan yan from you all the time, even in the simplest situations of your lives. And speaking of critiquing or evaluating a contemporary work of art, we have to follow a structured procedure so that at the end of the day, it wouldn't sound na you are just giving an unwelcomed or unsolicited comments or remarks sa isang particular na obra. And before going into details about how to evaluate an artwork, let us again re-emphasize that the whole point of art appreciation is to explain why we like or dislike something, not simply whether we like it or not. Hindi lang ito tungkol class sa gusto natin ito or bakit hindi natin ito gusto. Kaya naman, as critical thinkers, hindi ito tungkol sa issue ng personal preference. But to have an artwork evaluated properly is answering bakit. Again, bakit? Iyon ang naging judgment mo sa isang artwork. Halimbawa, class, you may end up disliking a picture because it is too dark or sobrang dilim. But you may still like its subject matter or appreciate its overall message, right? To put it simply, yung sabihin mong, I don't like this artwork is not enough. Hindi siya sapat, insufficient. We need to know the reasons behind your opinion and also whether you think the work has any positive qualities man lang. And again, bago ko malimutan, in this topic, we are not just talking about visual arts, we are talking about here the evaluation of all contemporary forms of arts. Kaya naman sa discussion natin, ang evaluation ng choreography, musical instruments, literary and musical compositions, visual design, and applied arts combined, theater arts, and cinema, kasama lahat-lahat ng yan sa topic na ito. Kaya naman ang tanong, what are the steps po ba in evaluating a contemporary work of art? It's a wonderful question to answer. Class, when we evaluate an artwork, our minds go through a process. At ang process na ito naturally translates into the steps of the so-called art criticism. Remember, class, following steps of art criticism will help us evaluate an artwork effectively. In this case, my dear senior high school students, allow me to present you the 4 steps in critiquing or evaluating an artwork. Isa-isahin natin sila para in your learning exercises at pati na rin sa assessment na matatagpuan sa inyong module ay magawa ninyo ang mga ito on your own at ma-achieve natin ang mga learning targets for today. So are you ready, guys? All right, so we have step 1, description, followed by step 2, analysis, and then we have step 3, interpretation, and finally step 4, the verdict or the judgment. Again and again, class, understanding these 4 steps allows you to evaluate a work in more objective manner. Sa madaling sabi, you can still appreciate the art even though it may not be in the style that you enjoy the most. Before I present these steps into details, I want you to observe the image very well. This is an artwork from one of the grade 10 students. Okay? Tingnan nyong mabuti ang bawat details and angulo from general to specific details. Then ask yourself and decide whether you like this image or not. Then allow me to proceed with the discussion of art evaluation and let us see if your thoughts about these artworks would change. So again, in 1 minute to 2 minutes, your observation starts now. Done with the observation? If yes, let us now proceed with the next part of our discussion. Class, the first step in art criticism is description. When we look at a work of art, our minds naturally take notice of the general information that's present, right? But make sure that before you put this information into your mind, dapat ito ay factual truth lamang about the given artwork. Sa madaling sabi, before you make a judgment, you have to make a research first and get an answer to the following questions. Number 1, what's the title of the artwork? Usually, class, the title gives us the clue or at least an idea about the message of an artwork. Kaya this is very important, or this is the very first information that you have to find out. Number two, you also have to find out who is the artist or the person behind the obra. And in last week's discussion naman, we have already emphasized the role of these creative people and the production of an artwork, including how it affects you as an audience, right? Kaya after that, punta tayo sa number 3. Kailangan mo ding malaman when and where it was created. Baka akala mo na ito ay contemporary artwork. Iyon pala ay na-produce ito in the modern era. Baka akala mo ay traditional art form, ngunit hindi pala. Also, baka ang inaakala mo na ang artwork ay made and conceptualized by a Filipino artist, pero foreigner pala ang gumawa. O kaya naman, baka ang akala mo ay hindi proudly Pinoy ang artwork dahil outside the country ito ginawa, pero Pilipino naman pala ang nasa likod nito. Again, the questions when and where emanates us a clearer understanding about a particular artwork. Next, number 4. Another question to answer is, what media was used? My dear grade 12 students, knowing the medium means knowing the substance the artist used to create or perform an art form. Especially ngayong contemporary era class, media have expanded because of the empowerment in information and communications technology. Number 5, part din ng stage 1 or the description ay ang pagsagot sa tanong na, is there a primary subject in the piece? Class, kapag sinabi nating subject in the field of arts, ito yung tumutukoy sa main idea that is represented in the artwork. Basically, nasa subject ang essence sa bawat piece or obra. And determining the subject tells us what is actually depicted in it, or kaya naman ay what is the artist trying to express. So that's the fifth question na you have to find an answer under description. And finally, number 6, my dear grade 12, the most important among all the questions in description stage that is connected with the technical aspect of the subject ay, what specific elements of art can you find within the piece? Elements of arts. Yes, you heard it right, class. Knowing what elements of arts present in a particular obra or piece can actually sum up the physical or the substantial features of an art form. Listen to this very well, class. Art forms, especially in the contemporary era, vary in subject, theme, styles, medium, and techniques. Kasi nga ang sabi natin in the previous lesson, it always go outside the box. However, I would like you to know that there is a specific characteristics that is common to all. At ano yon? They share certain elements which are essential, right? In the production or the performance of an art form, napakahalaga ng mga ito. And even though pinag-aralan na ninyo yung mga elements na ito, especially when you were in grade 7 or kahit nung nasa elementary pa lang kayo, let's have a review about them or let us study further about these elements. So, look at your screen. And basically, iyan ang list ng elements present in every art forms. Looking at them, I know ang iniisip nyo ay more of visual arts ang mga yan, such as drawing and painting. But ibahin natin muli ang inyong understanding regarding the elements of arts because I'd like you to know na ang mga elements na ito ay applicable sa iba pang art forms katulad ng choreography, musical instruments, cinema, and other art forms na pinag-aralan natin in the past few weeks. Again, for another time, Para mas malinaw, these elements are present not only to visual arts, but in the other forms of arts as well. We have space, line, shape and form, color, value, at syempre, texture. Tandaan class, the elements of arts are all around us all the time. From the moment we wake up until we go to sleep, and my dear senior high school students, being aware of this educates our senses and enriches our lives. Hopefully, after reviewing them, they will be restored or they will be stored in your memory and you shall be able to retrieve them when you find cause for them or kapag nagsimula kayong gumawa ng sarili ninyong obra at masterpieces. Una, meron tayong tinatawag na space, which ito yung pinaka-fundamental of all the elements. Sa visual arts, it can be defined as a void, an emptiness, which can either be positive or negative. Ano ang ibig sabihin nito? It's the space where the obra is placed. Again, I'll repeat. It's the space where the obra is placed. Or should I say, it's the space where the product of imagination can be found. Class, sa drawing and paintings, our goal is to create the illusion of space, right? Kaya sabi natin kanina, it's either positive or negative. Positive space, ito yung main focus area. Samantala, kapag sinabi nating negative space, ito naman yung background ng obra. Halimbawa, you take a cloudscape. Ano ba yung cloudscape? Picture ng ulap. Sa larawan na yan, ang mga clouds or yung ulap, yung tinatawag nating positive space. On the other hand, yung blue skies naman as the background, yung kino-consider natin as the negative space. Moreover, class, sa ibang art forms naman, ang space can be referred to as an interval or pause. What does it mean? Sa literature, for example, the pauses between words, iyon yung space. Or kaya naman, in musical compositions, space refers to the interval or yung gap ng bawat notes. Okay? So that is what we call space. Second element, which I assume na una ninyong natutunan during your younger years as a student, we have line. Basically, class, line is defined as the extension of a point or long mark drawn or curved on a surface. Point to point, ika nga sa wikang Filipino, or very elementary. When you connect two dots, ang sabi ng dati nating mga teachers, that's when line is being formed. And that's true naman. But in this course, what's important about this element is the implied path that it suggests. Again, what's important in this course or in this subject in line is the implied path that it suggests. What are these paths? Okay? It could be by direction such as the vertical, horizontal, and diagonal lines, or by character like the jog lines, curved lines, or series of dots and broken lines. My dear senior high school students, in painting, drawing, and other artworks of the similar type, napakadaling mapinpoint ng mga lines dahil noticeable naman talaga sila. Pero sa other forms of arts, such as performing arts and literary arts, a line is described differently. Sa theater and cinema, kapag sinabi nating line, it may refer to the script of the actor or ng performer, right? Sa choreography naman, or sa dancing, line is the series of steps na ginagawa or pinapakita ng isang dancer. But gayon pa man, kahit na iba't iba yung distinctions ng line sa other art forms, okay? It's still considered as an important art element. So that's what we call line. All right. Sa ikatlong art element naman tayo, we do have shape and form. These two classes are most identical when it comes to their characteristics as an integral art element, except the fact that shape is two-dimensional, whilst form is three-dimensional. And I assume that you do understand the meaning naman of 2D and 3D since you started studying arts. But to put their definition into details, we have shape, described as a figure separate from its surrounding area or background. Kung ang line ay nabubuo through the connection of dots or points, ang shape naman nabubuo kapag ang three or more lines nag-connect sa isa't isa and were able to enclose a space. At kapag sinabi din nating shape class, it can either be geometric or organic. What's the difference between the two? Geometric kapag ang shape ay angular like triangle, square, rectangle, rhombus, parallelogram, trapezoid, trapezium, pentagon, hexagon, heptagon, octagon, and others alike. Many more pa yan. Meanwhile, kapag sinabi nating organic, these are the shapes na kahawig ng mga hugis from the things we see in the natural environment, like the shape of the flowers, the shape of the sun, the shape of the star, and the moon, etc., etc. Ngayon, class, as what I mentioned earlier, almost the same nga lang siya with the form, except that forms are three-dimensional. What are the examples of forms? We have cube as the 3D version of square, sphere as the 3D version of a circle, rectangular prism as a 3D version of a rectangle, etc., etc. And class, take note that in all forms of arts, shapes and forms are always present. Kaya naman these are considered important, especially when evaluating an artwork or obra. Third to the last element is also quite familiar to you, color. Probably class, it's the most striking art element for it's the first one that catches our attention, right? Ano nga ba ang ibig sabihin ng kulay? Though kinder pa lang kayo, you have been studying this art element. But in a deeper understanding or in the technical aspect of the subject, dinedefine natin ito as a sensation created by visible wavelengths of light caught in a prism. Sa madaling sabi, dear senior high school students, kapag sinabi nating kulay, nagbibigay tulong ito sa ating paningin para mapag-iba-iba ang magkakaparehong bagay. No need to discuss it further if ano ang mga primary colors, secondary colors, ha? But doon tayo sa significance that colors play especially in the overall impact of an artwork or obra when you evaluate or assess it. It plays very significant role. What I am trying to say is that in arts, colors provoke different feelings. It creates a mood or tone, which means it can easily help us understand the message or kahit yung dapat na lang nating maramdaman kapag nakita natin or na-witness ang isang art form. Halimbawa, basically, in visual design and applied arts combined, red means passion, anger, or most of the times, it symbolizes love, right? Blue for peace, nobility, or sadness. And yellow for joy, innocence, or even jealousy. But bukod doon, color also plays an essential role in other art forms, like in music. Sa musika, we don't see anything or wala tayong nakikita as form or as an art form na meron dito. Naririnig lang natin. The question is, nasaan ang kulay sa art form ng music? Well, it can be found in intensity or the loudness or softness of a sound. Yung lakas o hina ng isang tunog is a depiction class ng kulay sa musika. Also, remember, my dear senior high school students, that color can also have different meanings depending on one's culture and tradition or even a particular period like the contemporary era. That's color. The fifth one, dumako naman tayo class sa tinatawag nating value. In visual design and applied arts class, value is referring to the degree of lightness and darkness of a color. I'll repeat, degree of lightness and darkness of a color. Sa larangan ng sining class, artworks that exhibit a full range of value are generally successful. Sa totoo lang, it doesn't matter what type of art you are creating. Basta't balance ang combination ng dark value sa light value at most likely class, sigurado that your artwork will be aesthetically pleasing. Halimbawa na lang class, in music, value refers sa taas or baba ng isang tono, and the tone color or timbre gives us the quality of a sound. So basically, in all art forms class, hindi dapat ma-left behind or maiwan ang elementong ito ng sining. And finally, to complete our first step, towards art criticism, which is description, we have texture, or sa wikang atin, tekstura. Class, when we say texture, it refers to the way an object feels, to the sense of touch, or looks as it may feel if it were touched, right? Sa madaling sabi, ito yung elemento ng sining na pangunahing umaapila sa pandama o panghipo since it is considered as the surface o yung ibabaw ng isang artwork. Nararamdaman natin ang tekstura ng mga obra class sa dalawang pamamaraan. Either direkta mo itong hawakan or yung tinatawag nating tactile or actual texture. Or kaya naman, sa pamamagitan lang ng pagtingin sa isang artwork ay para bang naramdaman o nahawakan mo na din yung totoong surface nito. Kaya may tinatawag tayong simulated texture or visual texture. Remember class, sa pagkilatis natin ng tekstura, ito ay maaaring makinis, magaspang, manipis, makapal, mapino o mabalahibo, etc. etc. At katulad ng ibang art forms, texture plays an important role. For example, in music or even in literature, texture is the quality or yung style of a composition. The sounds from different musical instruments allow one to hear texture in sound. Okay? So these are the basic elements of arts at tandaan na you have to remember all of this because you will be needing it in the first step of evaluating an artwork. At katulad nga ng sinasabi ko, these elements are the basic tools of expression in any art form. They can be found in nature and in a man-made environment. Artists use, arrange, and manipulate them to express feelings or mood and to convey their message to the viewers, listeners, or readers like us. That is step number one, or description. And as a recap, again, think of facts and find answer to the question. Huwag agad mag-judge. Kaya you have to answer the question, what is the title of the artwork? Who is the artist? When and where it was created? What media was used? Is there a primary subject in the piece? And of course, the thing that we discuss as a review, what specific elements of art can you find within the piece? At pagkatapos mong masagot ng lahat ng yan, you can now proceed to step number 2. At ang step number 2 ay analysis. Just like the first step, Analysis is an impartial phase of art evaluation or art criticism. Kaya naman when you reach this part, you have to be more, or should I say, 100% objective. Why? Because class, analysis refers to how the elements of arts used in the work. In this step, our minds take everything in the artwork. At dito na rin papasok ang tinatawag nating principles of design, which I'll discuss later. But take note, my dear students, that in an art evaluation, you have to point out or clarify what is happening within the elements na nakuha mo sa step 1. And isama mo na din dito sa step na ito yung tinatawag nga nating principles of design. Kaya that means step 1 and step 2 are connected or interrelated with each other. Many times, class, the formal qualities of the art or what makes the art successful ay nasa step number 2. Kaya the first question na kailangan mong sagutin or gawa ng explanation is, how do elements of art interact with each other? Again, the first question that you need to ask and find an answer is, how do elements of art interact with each other? Since in the first step, na-determine mo na yung mga various elements na present in a particular obra, you have to analyze naman or study well kung paanong ang mga elementong ito ay nagkakaisa or working together in presenting the obra in general or as a whole. And when you did that, you will be able to answer na din the next question under the second step, which is what specific elements stand out. Okay? Kaya talagang all the information that you have determined or identified sa step 1 ay dadalin mo until step 2 because remember, my dear senior high school students, you should understand again how these elements work and what makes them successful in artwork. Moreover, class, under this procedure or evaluation process, you should also be able to discern or distinguish, that's the right word, kung kailan ang mga elementong ito ay hindi nag-work or unsuccessful in the artwork or obra. At para mas maging solid or strong ang evidence mo under analysis, you have to respond to another question that is, what principle of design can you find? Again, principles of design. Katulad ng elements of arts class, you have already studied this noong nasa junior high school kayo. Pero for us to technically achieve our competency, let's have a review of these principles. Ano muna ba ang ibig sabihin ng design class? Design is the overall structure of an art form. It is a plan for order. It is the means by which artists indicate and demonstrate and feelings they wish to convey. Kumbaga class, dito sumasalamin kung paano na iplano at nailatag yung basehan ng paggawa ng obra or ng masterpiece sa anumang part ng art forms. Okay? Take note, my dear senior high school students, that principles of design are also called the organization of the elements. They help people make sense of our environment. At the same time, make it aesthetically pleasing and interesting. At dahil ang contemporary art has moved away from the classical styles, it is sometimes hard to critique a contemporary work of art. Therefore, it's important to know the principles of design to be able to evaluate the art value. Tandaan nyo class that a good contemporary work of art follows most, if not all, of these principles. They are tools for organizing the elements of art to produce a unified and harmonious design, composition, or performance. Ano-ano ba ang mga principles of design? Number 1, meron tayong harmony. Number 2, variety. Meron din tayong rhythm, proportion, balance, movements, emphasis, and subordination. Isa-isahin natin ang mga yan as a review and as an integral part of this discussion. And also, we'll try to apply the definition of these principles kung paano natin ito mapapakita sa totoong buhay. First, we have harmony. Kapag sinabi nating harmony class, it refers to the wholeness of the design o yung kabuuan na nakikita natin in a particular obra or masterpiece. And not just in general, but it also reflects the pleasing arrangement of parts and the agreement between parts of a composition resulting in a united whole. Sa visual arts, my dear grade 12 students, it is easy to spot the harmony or sometimes tinatawag natin kasi itong unity. Sa paanong paraan, madaling makita. If each of these elements in a visual work of art plays a vital role in the artwork. Again, each or lahat ng elements then harmony is present. Pero sa other art forms, it will take extra effort before you are able to spot the harmony. Example, in music class, bago mo ma-determine yung tinatawag nating harmony o bago mo masabi if there is a harmony, you must be aware of the combination ng mga nota or musical notes if it is simultaneously played to produce music. In other words, it's more of a technical aspect. At tandaan, no musical work has only a single note, right? It needs harmony to be considered as music. Another example, in literature, dapat all the elements of a particular literary piece are interrelated or connected with each other, especially dun sa tema or concept. Dapat ang mga details ay magpapaunawa sa reader kung ano ang iyong binabasa at hindi ka bibigyan ng any confusion para masabi mong worth reading ito. Sabi nga, a piece of work that has no harmony is confusing to read. And that's true. So basically, that's all about harmony. Pero bago tayo pumunta sa next principle class, paano ba natin mako-connect ang principle of harmony na ito in real life situations? Class, in our life, harmony is the answer to tackle the issue of diversity o yung tinatawag nating pagkakaiba-iba ng bawat isa. Actually, it is evident in world affairs, katulad na lang ng main goal of the United Nations or UN, which is an intergovernmental organization. At ano ang main goal nila? To create harmony among different people of all nations. That's their main goal. At according sa kanilang slogan, unity and diversity. Next, we have variety. Variety pertains to the assortment or diversity of a work of art. As you observe, it's quite contradicting to harmony if you will take its definition literally. Pero ang point here, kung bakit in the principle of design, there is a need for variation or assortment, ay para hindi maging plain and super simple ng artwork. Lalo na nga that we're talking about contemporary art forms. Dapat always outside the box ang general appearance ng bawat isa. Example, in real life situation, if there will be no variety sa hitsura ng mukha natin, ang hirap mahanap ng sariling identity. What I am trying to say is that we can see variety in all of our surroundings. Another example are the flowers. Flowers come in different colors, shapes, and scent because every flowers differ from one another. Always remember, my dear senior high school students, that variations are produced so that monotony and uniformity in the environment are prevented. Next, let's have rhythm. I know that at some point you have heard this already. Like elementary pa lamang kayo. It's already a part of your discussion in your music lesson or in language subjects, especially in literature. But in general, as part of the art principles, ano ang ibig sabihin ng rhythm? My dear students, rhythm is defined as the regular, repeated pattern in the elements of art. It is a flow or feeling of movement. Okay, ano ang ibig sabihin nito? Kapag sinabi nating rhythm or mas kilala sa tawag na beat, ito ay slightly contrary sa tinatawag nating variety because rhythm is the flow or feeling of movement achieved by the distribution of visual units or sound units in time. Dahil sa pattern na dala ng ritmo, hindi ito nagkakagulo o hindi ito nakakagulo ng isipan, especially when you are evaluating an artwork or a masterpiece dahil this is the principal class na nagpapakita ng galaw sa obra which, just like what I said, magiging madali for you lalo na if your task is to assess it. And again, rhythm is present hindi lang sa music, hindi lang sa visual art, hindi lang sa dance, but in all forms of arts. Just observe the pattern, just look at the flow, then that's the rhythm. Now, in real life situations, paano makikita ang rhythm? I'd like you to know na ang ritmo is natural in the universe. Paano? Class, rhythm exists in the human heartbeat, in the cycle of the night and day o yung paulit-ulit nating pagsaksi sa araw at gabi, in the waxing and the waning of the moon, and so on. Lahat ng yan is evident that even in the real life situations, there is rhythm, there is pattern, there is flow. Ika nga, life must go on. Alright, let's have now proportion. Ano naman ang proportion? I know you're thinking that this is all about a mathematical term connected to ratio. Yes, it's about measurement, but ano ba ang proportion as part of the principles of design? Ang sabi class, elements in an artwork or masterpieces that have a relationship with one another relationship is called proportion. Sa madaling sabi, ito yung liit o laki ng mga elementong nakikita sa sining class. Usually, when it comes to visual design, napakahalaga ng principle na ito because it is one of the things na kukuha ng atensyon ng audience, lalo na kapag you are trying to emphasize the subject. Halimbawa, in a stage setting, the backdrop and the props must be appropriate to the performers without outshining them so that they do not steal the audience's attention. And it's true. Sabi nga, it's not what you see but it's all about what you think and feel. Always remember, class, that a well-proportioned shape is pleasing to the eye. That's proportion. And it has a connection with the next principle, which is what we call balance, or the even distribution of weight, and the principle that deals with equality. Most of the times, especially in visual design, we often hear this question sa mga artists. Pantay ba? Okay ba ang left sa right? Hindi naman ba maiiwanan ang taas or yung baba? These are only some, lalo na kapag na-OOC yung artist sa design niya. Class, meron tayong dalawang uri ng balance, the symmetrical and the asymmetrical balance. Ano ang pagkakaiba nila? Kapag sinabi nating symmetrical, kilala din ito sa tawag na formal balance. It refers to two sides that are identical to each other. Sa madaling sabi, sa uri ng pagkakapantay-pantay na ito, ang dalawang panig ay kailangang pareho. Ang taas ay kailangang pareho sa baba or ang kanan ay pareho sa kaliwa. Halimbawa ng mga bagay na may symmetrical balance is a cross-sectional image of a butterfly or paru-paro, especially when you see na nag-spread na ito ng wings. Kitang-kita ang pagkakapantay ng left sa right side. On the other hand, class, ang asymmetrical naman ay kilala din sa tawag na informal balance. From the word itself, informal, the two sides are not identical but equal in visual weight. Okay? Halimbawa, the artwork from Japan that you have learned doong grade 8 kayo, which is Ikebana or the art of flower arrangement. Class, in this kind of flower arrangement, hindi lang basta-basta ito ginagawa or inaayos ang mga flowers kahit na you observe that it shows informal balance. Dahil in this work of art, it still follows strict rules, especially when it comes to the visual weight o yung bigat. Ang tanong, in real life situations, paano ba magmamanifest ang balance? My dear senior high school students, the word balance is used in many aspects of life. For example, in order to be healthy, people need a balanced diet. Another, in the present society, matagal nang usapin ang equality between men and women. And today, kasama na din sa equality issue yung tinatawag nating members of the LGBTQ community. Also, in world affairs, people need a balance of power from the stronger nations or kahit dito na lang sa bansa natin. Leaders must observe balance in power like the distribution of functions in the executive, legislative, and judiciary. In other words, balance plays a very significant role as part of the principles of design. Second to the last principle is what we call movement, which refers to a way in conveying feelings and emotions. And when we say movements class, ito ang prinsipyo ng disenyo na gumagabay sa ating paningin kung paano natin tinitingnan ang gawa ng sining. Class, this principle of design is very fundamental in all art forms, especially in choreography and the theater arts. Yes, you heard it right. Movement is the means by which dancers make use of their bodies to express an inner condition. Or kaliman, an actor expresses their lines through facial expressions, gestures, and body language as they move on stage. And by knowing this principle, it will surely help you formulate an analysis of artwork or masterpiece with strong evidences without being too subjective. And in our real life situation naman, class, ang movement is very essential to all of us. It is indeed a basic principle of nature. There is the movement of time, the tide, the planets around the sun, and so on. That's movement. And finally, we have the last two principles of design na magkaiba ng kahulugan but mahalagang maunawaan, especially when arranging a product of an art. We have the so-called emphasis and subordination. They may be different in meaning, but they coexist with each other as an integral principle of design. Kapag sinabi nating emphasis, it gives importance or dominance to a specific object or yung something that makes a part of an artwork that stand out, ika nga. Samantala, kapag sinabi naman nating subordination, ito naman ang less dominant sa isang artwork. Pero kahit na hindi stand out sa isang paningin or sa perception natin, ito ay napakahalaga pa din. Sa iba't ibang forms of art class, the principle of emphasis and subordination are very evident. Like example, in the performing arts, actors and dancers are often placed at the front of the center stage, while the supporting cast stay on their sides or in the background lang. Pero lahat ng mga cast, bida man or hindi, main role man or supporting role, mahalaga ang ginagampanan ng bawat isa. How about in real life situation? How can we apply these principles? Balikan natin ang usual classroom setup natin. Before, in the actual classes, I, as a teacher, often stand and face you while you are sitting on your desk, neatly seated in rows or in columns, right? Pero hindi ibig sabihin na in the classroom, ako lang yung mahalaga. But even you plays a very important role in the teaching and learning process. So, these are the principles of design na you have to remember because you will be needing it in the second step of evaluating an artwork. At katulad nga ng sinasabi ko, these organizational principles form the design structure of the art forms. The artist use elements appropriate to the theme or the subject na nakita natin sa step 1. Then, they follow certain principles to achieve an aesthetically pleasing effect, which is in art evaluation ay ang step 2. And again, as a recap of our step 2 in evaluating an artwork, we have analysis na kung saan you have to be 100% objective and find answer to the questions, how do elements of art interact with each other? What specific elements stand out? And what principles of design can you find? And from description and analysis, let us now proceed to the third step na before, usually kapag ang tao ay hindi pa knowledgeable sa art criticism, ito ang first step na ginagawa. And it is what we call interpretation. Alright? Just like what I said, our lesson is all about evaluating an artwork. And to evaluate an artwork is not all about saying na you like it or not. At nakita natin in the first two steps na in assessing a specific masterpiece, you have to be objective first or kailangan mo muna ng strong evidences bago ang sarili mong impression or idea ay makount. Class, in step number 3 or interpretation, dito ka palang magiging subjective. And when we say subjective, it requires thought on your part. Oftentimes, we instinctively skip to this step. We look for the meaning agad-agad in everything that we see. So this is perfectly natural, pero kailangan nating itama. In this step, we explore the meaning of the art, right? Kaya naman the first question that you need to answer is, what is the artist trying to communicate to us? Ano ang nais iparating sa atin ng taong gumawa ng obra o nagper-perform ng particular art form? Tandaan, there are no wrong responses here. Kasi the artist may have a meaning that they intended in the work. But how we interpret this is completely up to us. Which is connected naman to question number 2. What thoughts or feelings come up when you see the piece? Of course, what you think is what you feel, or what you feel is what you think. In this step of art analysis class, kailangan the way you express your thoughts must have a connection with the emotions present in you. Because the ultimate role of interpretation can be found in number 3. And what is that? Express your opinion, but always back it up with evidence. Back it up with evidence. Saan makukuha ang evidences na to? The facts and information that you gathered in step number 1 and step number 2. By this, hindi sounds like more of personal impression lang ang analysis or kung paano mo in-evaluate ang artwork. But it would really look na critical analysis ang ginawa mo in this step. So again, Step number 3, as a recap, is interpretation. That gives you the opportunity to be subjective and let your thoughts be heard, be expressed, ika nga. And the questions you need to answer: what is the artist trying to communicate? What thoughts or feelings come up when you see the piece? And the reminder: express your opinion, but always back it up with evidence. Napakahalagang ma-achieve yan because as we proceed to the fourth and final step, dapat kumpleto ang lahat ng yan. Why? Alam natin that the final step is judgment. Ano ulit ang sabi natin class kanina? Never judge a book by its cover. Sa step number 4, it's a combination of steps 1, 2, and 3. Description plus analysis plus interpretation is always equal to judgment. I would like to remind you, class, that a specific work of art may not be your favorite, but it may still be successful. In this way, you appreciate all forms of art, even if we personally do not be fond of it. Kaya this is the only time, class, that you're going to ask yourself, do you like it? Why or why not? Again, ito yung time na tatanungin mo pa lang yung sarili mo na, do I like it? Bakit like ko? Bakit hindi ko like? Which akala natin, ito yung unang sinasagot. But technically, this is the last step. And also, you have to ask yourself, is the artwork effective? Again, use solid evidence to support your opinion. You have to discover what the artist is intending to say. And finally, what criteria do you think are important that help you in concluding your judgment? This involves everything you have discovered or decided about the work. It forces you, class, to analyze your reaction and what you have learned from it. Sa madaling sabi, class, this allows you to consider the work from a different angle. And after answering all those questions and following these 4 steps, it's the time that you can say that you have critiqued or you have assessed or you have evaluated a work of art, not just only from personal impression, but also with considering the elements and principles of art present in it. Kaya naman, I'd like to present you again this artwork from one of the grade 10 students. Can you evaluate it for another time? But this time, follow the 4 steps that I have given you. Nagbago kaya ang judgment nyo? Sa panong paraan? Feel free to share it. Kaya naman in the end, class, as a conclusion of this discussion, I'd like you to tell that understanding the step to art criticism and implementing them in a structured way in critic will lead to stronger artworks. These steps are vital and help us to appreciate all forms of art, including the works that we may not appreciate at first glance, because all forms of art have their place and all deserve a fair approach of evaluation.